This is London Greek Radio.
When the unexpected happens in your property, it's good to know Duplex Care is here to help 365 days a year. Whether you're looking for landlord support or peace of mind for your own home, our extensive plumbing, heating, gas and electrical services are on standby, ready to help. Duplex Care has become recognised as one of the best, most reliable and competitively priced companies in the industry. Our success comes from the quality of our team, our dedicated online staff, our engineers in the field and from over 15 years experience. We offer packages with 4 levels of cover and our landlord plan is specifically tailored to the property rental market. Visit duplexcare.co.uk or call 01992 621 383. Let Duplex care for you.
LGRs Talking Property is brought to you in association with Duplex Care Limited, giving you peace of mind with your property's plumbing, gas, heating and electrical systems. Let Duplex care for you. The views and opinions expressed on LGR's Talking Property are those of the host, guests and contributors, and are not necessarily those of London Greek Radio. While all facts, figures and statistics are carefully researched, listeners should check before taking any action based on information and advice offered in this programme. LGR's Talking Property with Carl Knipe.
Well, a very good evening and welcome back to LGR's Talking Property. My name is Carl Knipe and I'll be with you this evening for the next 55 minutes, chatting to my guests about the property market, prices, delays, problems, evictions or the lack of evictions, and landlords and tenants issues. Talking Property is your monthly live debate and discussion on the topics of the property world that are concerning us all. Well, what a few weeks we've had since our last Talking Property on the 2nd of September. Myself and my guests will try and bring you all right up to date with the property world, which seems to be changing quicker than the government's health policies these days. Hopefully, though, my guest this evening will make things simpler and easier to understand than the Prime Minister's explanation on COVID policy, or the okie cokey as it's being called. 1 minute we're all in, the next we're all out, and then we're all back in again. We're going to be talking about the difficulty in accessing mortgages this evening, which is preventing prospective home buyers in the UK from taking advantage of the Chancellor's stamp duty holiday. We'll be asking why are there so many less mortgage deals around than a year ago, when Mr Sunak is actively encouraging us to move? Why? Also, is it that property moves are being delayed and taking increasingly longer to complete? That 31st of March stamp duty deadline is looming closer and closer. Is the sales boom in danger of being scuppered by slow conveyancing? Economists are forecasting a 14% house price crash next year. Do tonight's guests agree or disagree? Is this just another example of the doom and gloom mongers, or a real possibility and the government introduces a winter truce on evictions and confirms the introduction of a 6-month eviction notice period? What does this mean for landlords and tenants alike? We'll bring you right up to date as to where the eviction situation sits. Put your questions to tonight's guests, have your say, text us on 0737 6611 033 or message the guys on Twitter at LGR Talk Property or email studio@lgr.co.uk and have your say. As usual, there's loads to get through this evening. It's full and a packed agenda. Are you ready to ask your questions to the guests? If so, text us on 0737 6611 033. Messages on Twitter at LGR Talk Property or email studio@lgr.co.uk. Ask away. In the next hour, we want to hear from you. We are here to help and inform. Talking Properties, your programme. It's your chance to voice your questions, concerns, or just comment on the debate. My first guest tonight is Mario Pezaris. Mario has been working in the conveyancing industry for over 18 years. He's an old devil now. And is the National Sales Director at Simplify, the largest provider of mover conveyancing in England and Wales. Mario, having begun his career working as a conveyancer, soon moved over to business development, assisting agents, builders and financial advisors to find the right conveyancing solution for them and their clients. From his experience of working with businesses of all different sizes across the country, Mario has a well-rounded view of both the conveyancing and wider property market. Outside of work, Mario has 3 young boys to keep him busy, and as a qualified FA coach, he'll be most likely found on the touchline on Saturday and Sunday mornings. Mario's family hail from Larnaca. Thank you for joining us again this evening, Mario. It's great to have you back with us here at Talking Property.
Yeah, Kalispera, Carl. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Well, absolutely fantastic having you with us. Thank you for coming back and returning. Being roughed up yet again, I suppose. Eh?
Yeah, no, it'd be good. It'd be good.
Good. Also returning to Talking Property is Vijal Garajani, mortgage broker and protection advisor at Thomas Oliver UK, and a friend of the show. Vijal, or Vij to his friends, he has a friends that I'm told by a couple of people anyway, has worked for a number of years in helping others either protect their loved ones or making the most of their money and achieving their financial goals. As a qualified financial advisor, he gives holistic financial planning and covers all areas of the financial timeline that we all pass through in life. He loves playing football and tennis, but this is on hold at the moment, and so he's switched to Zoom training sessions to make sure he keeps fit and healthy. Although this is mainly so he can eat what he wants on weekends, just don't tell my personal trainer, he says. And drink what you want also, Vish, I assume?
Yeah, of course, every evening.
I hope your personal fitness trainer is my daughter, Hannah Knight Fitness, and you're not been going elsewhere.
No, of course not. Of course not. I'd never do that to you, Carl.
Of course not. No. Well, on behalf of the listeners, welcome, Vijal. Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you.
Our final guest this evening is the incomparable Mr. Paul Champolina. We've just had to have Paul back with us to update us literally to the minute on evictions and landlord and tenant issues. This is just something that's changing so quickly that we needed the expert man himself with us. Paul's a friend of the show and spent more than 25 years helping landlords with tenant problems. He founded Landlord Action in 1999, which is widely considered the UK's leading provider of buy-to-let legal advice. Although Paul left school at 16 with no formal qualifications, his work ethic has ensured that he's never been without a job. From bailiff to TV host, Paul's a director and brand ambassador with Landlord Action. But he's probably best known for his hit Channel 5 programme, Nightmare Tenants, Slum Landlords, which is and has been airing over the last few weeks. And Paul, I've noticed you seem to be finding yourself in more and more tight corners, shall we say, on Nightmare Tenants and Slum Landlords recently.
Yes, and you've got to wait. Good evening, everyone. Listen, the new series is going to be coming out in the next month. That's Series 6, believe it or not. So there's plenty more dramas, Carl.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. We're looking forward to it. It is a bit like, what should we say, a series of narcs where each series seems to get more and more dangerous from what I can see, Paul.
Well, you know what? It's funny, actually, because, I started doing the program. I've been doing TV for a long, long time, but with the series, it's obviously the biggest series I've been on. And we started in 2015. And I remember when I was signing up for the second series, and, now I filmed Series 6 prior to COVID. I said to the producer, the guy that owns Bright Sparks, that writes it, I said, do you want me for the next series to make sure I get punched in the face? And he was like, really, yes, I'd love that. And I was actually only joking. But, you know how it is. So, yes, I mean, the stories that are on the programme are severe cases, obviously bearing in mind COVID and everything that's happening. But, I'm also dealing and speaking to landlords on a daily basis. And there's a lot of landlords out there struggling. Yeah, there is. Well, for listeners, obviously you can't see Paul, but trust me, he has a face for radio, and possibly you can work that one out. Carl, you used that last time. You've got to get some more material. Hey, there's nothing wrong with my material. You're coming up with granddad jokes now. Well, thank you very much. So, anyway, moving on. So, if you're thinking of buying or selling, or just have a question for tonight's guests this evening, please text us on 0737 66 11033, message on Twitter at LGR Talk Property, or email studio@lgr.co.uk. Ask away. In the next hour, we want to hear from you. There's already a couple of questions coming in, so we'll get to those pretty soon. It's your programme. Right, straight in there. The property market's been very active. Mr. Sunak's encouraged this with his stamp duty holiday, but the headline from the Financial Reporter in an article by Rosie Jones back on the 10th of September screamed out, 31% denied a mortgage since the introduction of the stamp duty holiday. What's going on here, Vish?
Everything's tightened up, basically. It's really difficult to get a mortgage out there, and it's really infuriating because we probably have the most inquiries we've ever had. We've had the most people that want to buy. 5% is non-existent. I know Boris announced something yesterday. We'll come to that. 10%, barely anything. If we do get a lender, it's 1 day only. 15% is the new normal. Last time I checked, first-time buyers were struggling for 5 or 10% deposit. Then we also have lenders that like to make up rules as they go along. We can accept this, we can accept that. Then they see in the bank statement you've taken self-employed grants, which you're perfectly allowed to do and continue working. Sorry, we're declining the case. It's not really fair to the clients, I'll be honest, but we just have to adapt. We just have to get smarter and we have to learn through experience, and that's what we're doing in the moment.
You think that are the lenders not really on board then with Sunak's, let's get out there
not
and
in
get
my
working?
opinion. The thing is, if you've taken away 10%,
They're not having him.
No, they don't want to lend. That's the reality of it. Lenders do not want to lend. They want to lend when you've got 40% deposit. They're fine with that. There's no risk there. But even 15% deposit, they're classing as quite risky. We don't have all the lenders that usually operate there. 20% is where all the lenders are at. That used to be 5% 6 months ago.
Yeah. So basically what we've got is a section of the prospective homeowners hoping to take advantage of stamp duty holiday being prevented or locked out of mortgage finance. Is that a fair comment, would you say?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair comment. What I would say is we've seen a lot of people probably go the extra mile to get that property though as well. And what I mean by that is, look, there's a lot of parents that have equities in their properties. At the end of the day, their children would inherit some of this. And what we're seeing is they're now raising mortgages on those properties, gifting more of a deposit to children, and therefore children now have the 15 and 20% deposit. People are now buying with friends or family as well. We're seeing adaptation occur. So actually, although the lenders are very strict, we still got a phenomenal amount of mortgage deals going through. Really?
Yeah. Well, that's great for the people who can get them, and not so good for the people being locked out, unfortunately.
No,
I think the only thing I was going to say was, I think in August, the Bank of England did report the highest number of mortgage approvals since, I think it was 2007, I think it was. So there's obviously some people that are getting them. So there's probably a bigger impact maybe in the first-time buyer sector, but that figure alone shows, that there's a few mortgages being done.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about the first-time buyer because Boris came out yesterday, our Prime Minister, and announced a couple of things, and we'll talk about that a bit further on. But according to research by Market Financial Solutions, almost half, 46% of those who had bought a property in 2020 said they encountered significant delays and complications when applying for a mortgage from a bank. So it seems like not only are there certain ones that are trapped and outside the circle of trust, even if they get in there, then they could be waiting a long time. Paul, what's your sort of thoughts on that? What do you think that's happening?
I mean, I spoke to a mortgage broker last week, and I mean, the delays, I think he said are unprecedented, which obviously is a major problem. But I think from what Vish was saying, is the lenders just don't have the appetite. They really do not have the appetite, and those figures, right, of 30% of applications are getting knocked back, and a lot of reasons. I mean, when I spoke to the mortgage broker that I know, he said that valuers are just undervaluing stuff, and that is a major problem as well, isn't it, Vish?
Yeah, it's one of the major issues we're having as well. So not only are we getting stupid down valuations, whether it's rent or the purchase price, significant delays. We've got lenders working on 19 working days, which is basically a month, to assess a document. That's to assess the documents and ask you further questions. So we're waiting a month for a response to the lender. They're effectively saying we don't want to give out mortgages. That's what that is.
It's not good enough, though, is it, that 46% of buyers have encountered these delays? I mean, surely the banks should be. I mean, my experience of banks over the last few years has all been about service. Well, it looks like there's very little service going on here. Surely the banks need to look at the situation and do more, or is it more complex than that? Mario,
I think it's.
Can I ask Mario that? To see what he.
Well, I think. Look, I think there are. The market at the moment, without sort of wanting to stick up for lenders, but there's a lot, there's such a surge, and naturally there's nervousness from them because of not knowing what's around the corner. So naturally they're going to make the hurdles for you to jump on higher. But then not only that, you've got the other side of actually just resource to be able to sort of process some of this stuff. So I think there's a number of factors there as opposed to just one. Naturally, they're cautious about lending, and as Vish said, 20% deposits are now the norm as opposed to when they were at 90 and 95%. And I think that's just reflective of the short-term vision at the moment of the market.
So Vish,
I think I was going to add something, Carl, as well, where I'm speaking to a lot of landlords that are looking to try and refinance. And obviously, what was brought in a couple of years ago was obviously the stress testing with regard to, Section 24, which is obviously the abolishment of interest relief. And I think obviously now 2021, that final year is going to be kicking in with regard to obviously tax returns and stuff. And I know that there's a lot of barriers as well for landlords, isn't there, Vish?
Yeah, it's not nice out there. It's one
Vish,
of those.
Can I just ask you? We got a question coming from Sam, one of our listeners, and he's come in and he said, "Why are lenders so reluctant to lend to landlords when we can, what's the reasons for it? We can send proof, we can do this, but it seems that they just lenders aren't interested in lending to landlords at the moment. Is that true?
I think there's a couple of things. I think. Yeah, it's gotten a lot tougher. I wouldn't say that they don't want to lend to landlords. I would say definitely it's a lot harder, but it's harder for a reason. The government introduced tax changes. Landlords technically have less money. They're submitting more tax. They're really scared about these landlords not being able to afford the mortgage, especially if there's no tenants in there. It's a lot more difficult. Tenants are struggling to pay. A lot of people don't have a job anymore. Actually, the best tenants now are council tenants because it's guaranteed rent, not private tenants.
Housing benefit tenants, do you mean?
Yeah.
Housing benefit tenants. Showing your age there, Vish.
Changed. I was always taught private tenants are the best, buy in London. Now those are the worst two things. You want to buy outside of London. That's where the demand is.
Why is that? Why are private tenants not as good a bet as maybe housing benefit tenants at the moment, in your opinion?
Because housing benefit tenants, you're guaranteed the rent, the council pays for it. Like, it's not either way, you're getting that money.
Yeah, but there's an argument, Vish, to that, though. I'll play devil's advocate because obviously I see the other side of it. You've got 2.5 million people now claiming universal credit. And of course, the worst law that came into effect was the direct payment that was made to tenant. There's unfortunately, a lot of housing benefit tenants that can't manage their money. I'm seeing a lot of landlords now doing direct 3 and 5 year deals with the councils. Where the councils are actually the tenants.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing a lot more of. To be honest, I've got a couple of clients that are only going that way because they're guaranteed the rent even if their property's empty. Yes, you're taking a bit of a hit on the market rent, but at least you're getting something. Whereas private tenants, if they ain't got a job, how are they paying you?
You need to get guarantors. That's the key going forward. I know a lot of landlords, company landlords, smaller landlords are now just insisting on guarantors on every tenancy they're signing up.
Yeah, I think everything's changed, to be honest. You've got to adapt.
Got a question coming in. Hi, guys. Can you please tell me if I can rent a property to a family member, Angela? Paul, do you want to answer that? You're probably the best person.
Well, yeah. Well, you can. Obviously the referencing is naturally going to change if it's a family member, but there's, we come across it all the time. Obviously there's a lot of landlords that rent to family members that need to get housing benefit, and you still need to give a tenancy agreement. We've seen it all at Landlord Action. In the 20 years of trading, we've done over 50,000 instructions. Believe it or not, we've done it. We've got parents evicting kids evicting parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles, you name it. We've had it, and it is very messy. And of course, you might have a family member that's just paying the mortgage as well, which makes it more complicated because, of course, do they try and claim some extra interest in that?
So what you're saying is be aware. I suppose as they always say, you can choose your friends, you can't choose your family. So you've got to bear that in mind.
Listen, it works for a lot of people, of course, but sometimes it goes sour. And of course, you've got to realise the majority of landlords out there got 1 and 2 properties. And of course, I think we had it was on last Thursday on the Thursday before we had an issue where there was a client of mine. She was evicting her cousin. The mother died, and she wanted to sell the property, and he wouldn't leave the property. It can just be a lot more messier, and of course, it splits the family.
Yeah, I understand. Listeners out there, have you say? Text us on 0737 66 11033. Message the guys on Twitter at LGR Talk Property or email studio@lgr.co.uk and have your say. Yeah, guys, yesterday our Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced that his government will bring forward proposals to introduce fixed rate long-term mortgages to enable first-time buyers to purchase homes via a 95% mortgage. The Prime Minister claimed that the initiative would add 2 million owner-occupiers to the housing market and fulfil one of his party's key 2009 election manifesto promises. Is this good news, Paul?
Well, on paper, it's good news. The reality, I think, it's going to be a lot more different. I mean, are you going to see a massive surge? What lenders are going to do those 95% mortgages? Of course, sweeping statements like that are going to be vote winners. But I think the reality, and of course, there is generation rent. And I think the way, if you look at now the typical renter, a lot of them they obviously naturally feel trapped, and a lot of them want to earn and have their own property. A tenant shouldn't be paying more than a third of their wages towards rent. Yeah, in principle, of course, you want first-time buyers, and there was this myth that when they brought in, the Section 24, the tax changes a few years ago, which was George Osborne, that a lot of these first-time buyers would snap up these properties. That never ever happened, Carl.
Yeah. Where are these 2 million homes going to, new owner occupiers? Where are they going to buy these 2 million other homes? Do you think, Mario?
Well, good. That's a very good question. I think the reality is there is, as we know, a shortage in housing. So I think as Paul said, they're more sort of sound bites, and the devil in all of this will be in the detail. But we know that in terms of that there's a housing shortage. We know that we're not building enough. This year I think they're talking about 35% lower new builds being built, new houses built this year versus last year, and last year was only circa 170,000. Yeah. So I think, as I said, it's just more of a kind of a nice thing to say for the media outlets to pick up.
Yeah, I suppose we got to watch this space and see over the coming months, what a little bit more meat on the bones. Yeah, would you say that, Vision?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's one of those. It's a great statement. I don't see how it's going to work in reality. Simply, what is the interest rate going to be? Interest rates are high on 15% deposit. So what are you going to price them at 5%?
Yeah, we don't really know anything about it. It's turning into Donald Trump and coming up with I'd hate to say fake news, but it's throwaway news, isn't it? Until there's more behind it.
Yeah, it's until you come up with a plan of action. It's just one of those things. He's just said it. He's got people inquiring, people excited, but other than that, I don't see how it's going to work.
Okay.
I mean, if you think about every government, Carl, and I think we had this conversation a year ago when I was on every government in an election manifesto says that they're going to build 300,000 properties, of which a portion of those are going to be social housing. It never ever happens. Exactly what Mario says. We have a housing shortage, especially a social housing shortage.
Yeah, it needs to be cut through, that's for sure. Another point that's a real concern to me is the reduced number of mortgage deals, Vij, out there available. Sunday Times article back on the 13th of last month, September, by Carol Lewis, made the point that there are 1,096 less mortgage deals available for those with a deposit of 10% or less compared with a year ago. I mean, that's a massive amount, isn't it?
Yeah, so like I said, 5% doesn't exist. 10%, I'm lucky if I have 2 or 3 lenders, and some of them are 1 day only. 15% deposit. Some lenders aren't even doing 2-year fixed rates. There's probably about 8 to 10 lenders out there. 20% deposit. I've got some of them are probably near all the market back. But you've cut out the biggest 3 percentages. You've cut out most of the products. You've cut out most of the affordable housing.
Yeah.
So this is what I mean. It's really tough, and it's one of those where we're just seeing a lot more parents help out and a lot more people buying with friends or family they wouldn't necessarily buy with, just to raise up that deposit, essentially.
Just going back to the whole process taking so long, is it that the system is just not fit for purpose at the moment? Is it like a little perfect storm where we've got so many companies that are taking liberties with the furlough scheme in terms of keeping people on furlough rather than bringing them back because that's good for their cash flow, shall we say? And there's genuine staffing issues. Mario, what's your sort of take on that?
Well, yeah, you said perfect storm, and that's what it is. I think you've got to you've got a conveyancing process which is, at the best of times has its challenges. You add into the mix where the current position we're in with COVID and lockdown, and a combination of all of those has meant that we're seeing delays. It shouldn't be a surprise, because at the end of the day, as I said, in good times transactions take longer than they should, because of the process. But that's due to a number of reasons. As to where we are now, the surge in the market, and it is a surge in the market, that is really, really impacting on everything, because you've mentioned furlough, people being put on furlough, not coming back into the place. There's redundancies that have been made, and this is not just in conveyancing, but across all different sectors that feed into the property market. Challenges from working from home. I think it's fair to say, the organisations like the Land Registry, the backlogs that they're suffering from is because, they were a bit sort of slow-footed in adapting to that period of lockdown. So I think ultimately there are, clearly there is just demands. As I said earlier on, the high sort of number of mortgage approvals. 20 CI data now is showing that. Sold subject to contract numbers have now overtaken year on year. So, and if you think this is coming off the back of a complete market shutdown, to have already overtaken where it was in 2019, people asking questions, why is it taking so long? Well, I think, at the end of the day, there's, that bit is a perfect storm. The surge in the market, not enough people across the different stakeholders in the property market are able to cope with that demand.
Okay, all right. We're going to go and take a break. When we come back, just following that on, I want to ask a little question out there. Another slow-mo area, as I call it, in the house buying process, local authority search times, which are also rising. Is this another situation with people working from home, or WFH, which surely has to be the new hated phrase taken over from Brexit, I would have thought, working from home? Or is there some other reasons causing these delays? We'll go to a break and we'll come back and we'll pick on that point.
LGR 103.3 FM.
Δημητρίου in English. 020 88 89 98 88.
When the unexpected happens in your property, it's good to know Duplex Care is here to help 365 days a year. Whether you're looking for landlord support or peace of mind for your own home, our extensive plumbing, heating, gas and electrical services are on standby, ready to help. Duplex Care has become recognised as one of the best, most reliable and competitively priced companies in the industry. Our success comes from the quality of our team, our dedicated online staff, our engineers in the field, and from over 15 years' experience. We offer packages with 4 levels of cover, and our landlord plan is specifically tailored to the property rental market. Visit duplexcare.co.uk or call 01992 621 383. Let Duplex care for you.
Carl Knight on LGRs Talking Property, sponsored by Duplex Care Limited.
Welcome back. Remember, you can text us on 0737 66 11 033. Messages on Twitter at LGR Talk Property, or email studio@lgr.co.uk with your questions for Paul, Mario and Vij this evening. Beth Rudolph, Director of the Delivery for Conveyancing Delivery Association, says that a lot, and that's pretty difficult to say, trust me, says that a lot of local authorities have gone back into the office, but they can only do half the pre-COVID numbers of appointments because they need to clean down in between. What's the solution, Vij? No pressure.
I don't think there really is one at the minute. We just have to find a way to cope. There's not going to be... there's nothing you can do with current restrictions. Well, what are they meant to do? They have to follow guidelines. They have to take extra time. It means they are doing less appointments. We're seeing that all around the process. It's not just them. Everything. People working from home. And one of the big things, by the way, is when someone's working from home, if they don't know the answer, they have no one to ask because they're working from home.
Yeah, I think that's a real issue, isn't it?
Yeah, because I'm used to, when I call up a mortgage lender, you can hear they're in the call centre.
Yeah.
They don't know the answer. They quickly ask their colleague or they quickly ask their manager.
Yeah.
Now, hang up call, email, things are taking 24 hours when they would take 30 seconds.
Yeah. What you find is when you're working together with a group, if you don't know it, then somebody else does, isn't it? And when you're on your own, you are literally on your own, and there's always going to be gaps in your knowledge and information. I can see that. How are you coping with that, the Simplify group, Mario?
Well,
that was an easier question than the one I asked Vish, so there you go.
There are those the challenges, whether that's searches or mortgages, land registries, surveys. So there are a number of things that are impacted. I mean, ultimately, we're trying to naturally get searches ordered as quickly as possible, and try and sort of expedite that sort of work smartly, but potentially, obviously there's still those delays, and unfortunately, whether that's you've got risks because obviously you've got if there's a COVID outbreak or anything like that, and all of a sudden you've got departments, local authorities that shut down for a period of time. It's an under-resourced area in local authority anyhow. So with that in mind, something like this, it's not going to sort of end well as such, and that's why you're seeing those delays in that area. But again, I think it's sort of an education piece to people out there in terms of sellers and buyers that there are these knock-on delays, because I think there's almost like a kind of a sort of an expectation everything's gone back to normal when it comes to sort of buying and selling your house, and unfortunately there are those delays, whether that's in mortgages or local authorities or land registry.
Would there be even if we'd not had COVID, just for the sheer upturn in volumes and transactions, would the conveyancing market, the lenders market, would they actually even be able to cope if this happened a year ago and the upturn went? Even then, would they be able to cope, do you think?
I think there'd still be pressures. I mean, because as I said right at the start, it isn't a perfect process. It comes down to trying to do lots of things have been spoken about in terms of how to improve the process, and ultimately searches is one of those things which has been spoken about, of the provision of information up front before you've actually sold your property, and buyers get the information in terms of searches and all of that. It goes back to sort of what they were trying to do over a decade ago with home information packs and things like that. But ultimately we are where we are. I think the short term, nothing's going to change. Everybody is working flat out, whether you're in the surveying business or in conveyancing. It's the surge is there. And it's going to continue because the government have turbocharged the market with the stamp duty. There was already pent up demand before.
So we should be clapping on a Thursday night for everybody involved in the property market. Is that what you're saying? Because they're all working so hard. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, get your saucepans out, start clapping. That'll be good.
I've been chased many times in my youth when I first started in the property world by people with saucepans, but not for that reason, I think. Just some data that I saw last week, in fact, was from 20CI, which shows that the average time from offers accepted to exchange of contracts is now 125 days, up from 107 days. Mario, would that fit in with the data that you have at the Simplify group?
Yeah. It's gone up. It has gone up, and the reality is you've got you can. I mean, we're doing some things different. We brought some people. A lot of our guys all came back in from furlough quite early doors. Some would argue still even not quick enough. I guess hindsight's a wonderful thing, but we are investing further by recruiting and pushing that recruitment. But what we're finding is that there are other people and other businesses in the conveyancing arena where they've either left people on furlough, they've made some redundancies, not knowing what the future market's going to look like. And because of that, it's all knock on. So you're only as fast as you change. So you can do some clever things and you can try and work as fast as you can, but ultimately you're only as fast as the slowest link of the chain. So there is that impact.
Yeah. Mark van Grunder, a Central London agency, Benham and Reeves, came out and said recently it's incredibly frustrating. At the moment, you're lucky to get a sell through in 6 months from offer being agreed to completion. And that sort of fits in with a question we've just actually had come in. Well, not just come in. It came in about half an hour ago from somebody just basically saying, I'm thinking of moving at the moment. Have I time to buy and move before the stamp duty or not? It's going to be tight, isn't it? What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I think it is. I think there's a few issues because obviously, Vish will tell you with regard to lending, the lenders, we've got to think about we had the 2008 crash, even though, which was subprime and 100% mortgages and all that. It's what's round the corner. What's going to happen? Furloughing's stopped. There's going to be new initiatives coming in. The government have pumped in £150 billion worth of support because of COVID. And the lenders know there's going to be job losses, and of course that's going to be detriment, obviously, to people being able to buy properties. They're going to be looking to see are people on furlough, and there are going to be excuses, obviously, to knock back mortgages. But just one thing I wanted to mention about the home working, because obviously it was really strange. I was in shock, Carl, for 6 weeks. Because I'm out and about and I'm doing loads of different things and whatever, and I was doing loads of webinars and whatever. And there's been issues obviously with people having mental health and working from home. I mean, I'm now back in the office in Bournemouth. We have 220 staff, and obviously we phase people in. But I think the epitome of me working home was I was doing a webinar. I had about 300 or 400 landlords online, and my daughter came down in her pajamas and wanted to do a TikTok with me. When I was doing a webinar. So that was the epitome of me working from home, and I'm so pleased I'm back in the office.
Yeah, that is a real issue. This week alone, I've had three members of my staff sort of saying that they really are finding it quite, testing or challenging, working not necessarily from home, because some of them are coming in and working, but working sort of on their own, in a room on their own. Feeling detached, feeling a bit isolated. They're not used to it. So I do think there's...
You need the interaction of work colleagues, definitely.
Yeah. So do we think then that Mr. Sunak's mini sales boom is in danger of being scuppered by slow conveyancing, slow lenders, all these sort of things? What do you think, Mario?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're looking at now and trying to form government is the cliffhanger edge of the 31st of March is not going to do anybody any good, we're trying to see if we can try and get that advise the government to push that back to the summer, just to give us a bit more time. You've got a bottleneck, as everybody's seeing, I think if you go back and say if he'd have maybe looked at doing something like this on stamp duty around sort of now, announcing it maybe in an October budget, and let the natural pent up demand from lockdown sort of flush through and then give it another burst. But what he added is sort of he put a turbocharger on it, and it surged ahead, and I think that has a knock-on impact on the prices, because naturally prices have risen. August to July, you're looking at circa sort of 2% rises from what the lenders are saying, 5% higher than year on year. So it's done that to the market. So it's pushed it forward, and prices. Everyone wants to get a bit of the stamp duty holiday, and the vendors are going to naturally put their prices up.
So if the stamp duty holiday was stretched out, do you think that would take actually some of the pressure off the marketplace at this moment in time?
It's a bottleneck now, isn't it? Yeah, there's a rush. I mean, there's a bottleneck now, and then that's the thing, and there's going to come to a point where you get towards the end of the year, and how likely are you to get moved in time and benefit from it? So, what happens on the 1st of April?
I have a feeling they'll increase kind of for sales agreed. They'll extend the deadline. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that. Yeah. I think they've got to, because the process is taking too long. It's one of those, like you said, if someone sells now, then tries to buy, you're touching it fine to complete in time. And we're a good 5 months away. Yeah. So...
Well, that brings me on, gentlemen, to the Centre for Economic and Business Research has recently come out with a warning of drastic 13.8% drop in average house prices next year. The economists there warned the current market is defying gravity and is at odds with the wider economic turmoil, something that we've touched on. Pablo Shah, senior economist at CEBR, said, "Our analysis suggests that prices will start to fall significantly towards the end of this year and the first half of 2021. though there might be a short spike as the stamp duty reduction comes to an end. I can't see that. I don't understand the process there, but there you go. That's what he said. With average house price, well, that's what he's been reported to say. With average house prices forecast to be 13.8% lower in 2021 than 2020. Is that just another one of these so-called experts sticking his finger in the air and making guesses, Paul?
Look, I think you're going to get a true indication quarter one, quarter two next year. I mean, that I've said that from day one, since this lockdown and everything that's happened with regard to getting a good feel with the economy and unemployment and what's going to happen with stamp duty. But you know what? It has been a bit of a false dawn, but market has been pushed up. I've got a pal of mine, he lives around the corner from me. I live in Barnet. He got £40,000 over asking. Okay, so people think they're saving money on stamp duty, but actually they're paying over the odds for some properties. It is a bit of a false dawn. So, and these guys, when it comes to house selling, they're on the front line with regard to lending and conveyancing. And the appetite, and I think Vish summed it up, and it was summed up from the broker that I spoke to last week. The banks don't really want to lend. And they will put hurdles. So a true indication, and there is, there's obviously loads of experts saying this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Q1, Q2 next year will be a true indicator. I don't know if the guys, agree with me or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you touched on something, actually. We talked about down valuations, right? But it's not actually a down valuation when they're paying 40 grand over asking.
Yeah,
it's correct. But what you got to remember is not everybody wants to live next to a TV, Channel 5 TV's film star. So that's the reason for it. Obviously, there's a big demand in that area.
House, don't you, Carl? I've seen your house. You've got stables. Don't give it large. I would love to live next door, you, Carl. All right.
Oh, I've got news for you. I won't like you living next door to me.
Yeah, I've heard about the parties. We get the environmental health team over and the noise abatement team.
It's all fake news, Paul. It's all fake news. Just something else as well. Go on, Mario.
I was going to say, I think you're going to. I can see the headlines now that at the end of sort of Q1, when the market starts to correct, and I say correct, what will happen is, you're buying your house, all of a sudden you hit your 31st of March comes and goes. 1st of April, you call the agent saying, I want to renegotiate the price. And then all of a sudden everyone's going to say, house prices are dropping, and really it's probably correcting to similar level after it was sort of turbocharged.
Well, that's exactly why the Chancellor can't allow that cliff edge to take place on the 31st of March, isn't it? There's got to be some tapering, some extension, something in some shape or form which eases that. And I believe, I don't know what you guys think, but I think next 2021 will be far more testing and challenging than 2020 even. 2020's been, it's a bit like when something happens to you, you don't know anything about it. You've got no preconceived ideas, but when you know that there's going to be issues and you'll plan for it, it can actually be more daunting because you have got to really face things that are going to be more difficult. So I think that's got to be extended. It'd be madness not to, having done all the groundwork this year, to then basically throw it all away and incinerate it.
But the money's got to be paid back, Carl.
Well, this is another issue, isn't it? But how that is beyond my pay grade, Paul. And at the what should we say? Not to insult any of you guys. With the greatest respect, it's probably beyond your pay grades as well, because I've stopped and looked at it, and I just do not know how we're going to pay all this money back. I really don't.
I think. Don't lose any sleep over it, Carl, because I think it'll be grandchildren's grandchildren that will be paying this off, just as it has in wartime scenarios where I think we've only just paid off some war from 1800 or something. So I think it's. I don't think we're going to be.
We won't be around to see it.
No, the only sleep I will lose is if Paul Champolina agrees to buy a house next door to mine. Then I will lose a lot of sleep.
or if Spurs win the league.
Yeah, I won't be losing any sleep anytime soon, I believe. But it's more likely of you moving next door, actually. But okay, let's turn our attention, Paul, to the lettings market. The government's introducing a winter truce, as it confirms, in the introduction of 6 months eviction notice period. And I think this is really important. We've got quite a lot of listeners who are still worried. We talked about this last month. I wanted to get you back to bring us right up to date to where we are. Mark Schofman, writing in the Property Eye last month, said basically, this 6 month notice period is going to happen. What's all this about, Paul?
Right. Okay. So, as you know, at the end of March, this is all about stopping loads of evictions and homelessness. The courts opened up on the 20th of September. We at Landlord Action, we had something like 600 cases stuck in the court system. So the notice period, you have a notice period for rent arrears, which was 14 days. It went to 3 months. And then at the end of August, it's 6 months. I've now got landlords, and I'm speaking to landlords all the time. I've got a team of solicitors that do the cases. We've got landlords that owe 2-3 months rent arrears. If you've got less than 6 months rent arrears, Carl, you have to serve a 6-month notice period. If it's more than 6 months, then you serve a notice that's a 4-week notice period. And there's other provisions whereby, if there's death of a tenant or false referencing or right to rent. But also, the government said that if you have 1 year's rent arrears, or there's antisocial behaviour or domestic violence, that case is a priority case. What the government have done with the Ministry of Justice, they've put various different hurdles when you are issuing claims. And landlords issuing cases, if they do actually have to evict a tenant, and they have to serve reactivation notices to get the cases started again. And now they do pre-review hearings to see if they're a priority case or not. I went through the procedure with some of my staff yesterday. The reality now is I say this all the time, and I represent lots of companies. I represent My Deposits and the Property Redress Scheme. We launched a mediation service, and if there's ever time to mediate and do a deal with your tenant where you might have to write off the rent arrears, give the deposit back, for them to vacate the property, it's now. I've got one landlord, this is no lie, and I'm filming with her next week for BBC London News. She's owed £35,000 rent arrears, Carl.
Unbelievable. I mean, that's it. The government's been accused of making it basically impossible for agents and landlords to sort of navigate this pandemic. Why is it that they just don't seem to want to help what would be their natural voters? What do you think the reason for that, Paul?
The situation is, Carl, landlords have suffered just as much as tenants. Majority of landlords out there have 1 and 2 properties. Now, if you have a tenant not paying the rent, and quite rightly they've said, that they, what would have happened, and I work very closely with the National Residential Landlord Association. We run a website called Landlord Zone, do loads of campaigning. We said there should be a tenant saver loan, which they brought into Wales and they brought into Scotland, where basically if your tenant goes in arrears, the government pay the arrears and they pay it directly to the landlord. The government has said no, we're not interested in that. We've helped out with over £1 billion through the pandemic towards universal credit. The reality is, and I've been doing this 28 years. I started Landlord Action 20 years ago, and I've never known anything like this. Is a landlord, if you have a tenant that's not paying the rent, and obviously the pre-COVID cases are the worst because they're the ones that got stuck in court for 6 months.
Yep.
If you have to serve a notice for a 6-month notice period because your tenant's in 2-3 months rent arrears, we're having landlords waiting for there to be 6 months rent arrears, hoping the tenant's not going to pay, so you serve a 4-week notice period, and then you have to go to court, and a landlord technically could be without their rent between 12 and 14 months. And of course the lenders look at that as well. How does a landlord pay the rent? And some of the landlords during the pandemic, they weren't, there was this notion the government said that you can get a mortgage holiday, and Vish will say it's a deferment. And then there was some landlords that didn't want to take that option up because they were worried about their credit rating. But it will throw up opportunities because you will get landlords that will say, I've had enough, I want to get out. You'll have other landlords that want to buy possibly those properties, but you'll see a lot of situations where, unfortunately, you will see landlords selling properties with tenant in situ, and you will see a rise in illegal evictions. And unfortunately, landlords do get a disease called landlord rage. I see it all the time. Yeah. They're desperate for their property back. I speak to a couple of police that I know locally in the Barnet area, and they're getting more and more calls now with regard to illegal eviction. So that is going to increase.
Yeah. Just a quick one. I've got a tweet in from SK9. We'll come to you. You've got a great question. We'll come to you in the next 5 minutes. I just want to carry on the points I'm with Paul here. Opposition parties, both the House of Commons and House of Lords, have called on the government only a couple of weeks ago to abandon the restart of eviction proceedings. What's your thoughts on that, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, that was... Listen, it got suspended twice. I mean, I announced that I thought the courts were reopening in June, and I got bamboozled by lots of tenant focus groups and campaigning groups. I even got sent a picture of a guillotine and some graveyards and stuff like that. What is happening is, it's going ahead, but the problem is you've now got approximately 60,000 cases stuck in the court system, of which 70% of those are social housing. What is going to come in now, another procedure, is going to be pre-action protocol, where you have to try and mediate and show you've mediated with your tenant. But unfortunately, by the time it goes to court, a lot of the time the tenants don't want to talk, So landlords have got to be pragmatic, and they've also got to treat this as a business. And, do they want a scenario where there is a tenant, and there will be tenants taking advantage of staying in a property as long as possible, not caring about their credit rating? So you'll get landlords now that will be much more diligent with referencing. You'll get landlords that will be doing much more requirements with regard to asking for guarantors. And we haven't even talked about something that's going to happen in the next 12 months. And I'm on the working group with this, is the abolishment of Section 21. That's going to happen as well. You've got 6-month notice period for Section 21. That was on the cards beforehand, and they were talking about housing courts. So, watch this space. We are forever on a daily basis reporting all of this on Landlord Zone.
Yeah, they obviously know what the ideas were, obviously, to do away with Section 21. And they're not going to have to revisit that, though, bearing in mind the volume of arrears and the COVID situations that we've got. Do you not think that they can't just proceed down the line that we're going to proceed down, surely?
100% they will. I've been involved. There's a report coming out to the industry. We sent it to 650 politicians last week. It's called Beyond Section 21. We did an analysis in a court and about you have to have major investment in the court system. You have to make sure you've got more judges, more bailiffs. You have to invest in mediation, and you have to reform the bailiff system. Section 21 is definitely 100% going. And if there was ever a time that the government could abolish it, it will be now, because they've changed the notice period to 6 months. Prior to COVID, it was one of the biggest things that were going to happen, because the reason they produced an assured short-hold tenancy agreement was so that the landlord can get the property back. But there was over 20,000 consultations to the banning of it. So it is definitely going. It's about shaping what the process will look after.
There is definite unease within the Conservative Party. Now, I know that Baroness Altman, former Pensions Minister under David Cameron, has applauded the way the blanket COVID evictions ban has protected tenants, but says landlords are being treated unfairly. So the Baroness even went as far as to describe it as being very unconservative, as I've said. So there does seem to be within the Conservative Party some, obviously, unrest there. Mario, sorry, I
was just going to say there's a lot of Conservatives politicians that are landlords.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, I just think that the Conservatives seem to be acting very much like New Labour would have. Is this all really wrapped up in the new red wall, that they're going to try and hold these seats that they've won at the last election? Is this part of it, do we think? Mario?
Yeah, I think there's probably an element of that. At the end of the day, that they, as you say, they won a lot of red seats. They need to repay that faith in them. We all saw Boris, in the build-up to the election, campaigning up in those Labour heartlands. So I think there's probably an element of that, which is why he's naturally gone and protected tenants over and above of the landlords, whether he believes landlords are more forgiving than the tenants, because they're typically, you'd say, would be voters that are sort of Tory heartland. So I think and also there is an element of the situation and obviously tenants, if evicting them in a scenario like we are in now, which has only been really repeated in a wartime scenarios. There's an element there that he's probably taken the side of the tenants because of that. But naturally, landlords, as Paul said, there's some probably equally bad horror stories in the landlord world.
I think we can all appreciate that, but I think there's going to be a balance, doesn't there? There doesn't seem to be any balance. It just seems to be 100%, 0%. That's the way I'm looking at it. I mean, Ranjan Bachara, I don't know if you've seen this, he says the current tenants evictions process is not fit for purpose. Bachara wants to see an Australian-style system introduced in the UK, enabling tenants to be evicted after being 14 days in arrears with rent. He's got 5,000 over 5,000.
I commented on that today actually on Property Tribes. I've wrote a big post. I've known Ranjam for years. I think that's a case of trying to get more eyeballs on your YouTube channel than anything. Let's be very clear. You can serve a notice for a tenant if they owe you £1.
Yeah.
Okay. At the moment, you've got to serve a 6-month notice period. So there's nothing new out of all of that. You know, what we do know is that there was a massive backlog in the court system. There's supposedly up to 200 judges on call to be able to do these hearings. I'm now seeing on the ground what's happening with regard to these cases. And of course, can you imagine taking calls and explaining calls to landlords to say, unfortunately, your case is not going to go ahead because it's not deemed as priority. I can't. And they've been waiting 6-8 months before that.
Yeah.
And of course, we end up being at Landlord Action, Landlord Samaritans.
Have you got any more webinars coming up, Paul, where landlords could join and get a bit more up-to-date advice? Have you got anything planned with this side of the new year?
It's funny you should say that, actually, because at 8:10 I'm doing a webinar for Harrogate Property Investors Network. But yeah, I mean, if you go on Landlord Zone, we do lots of webinars and we update and whatever. You just got to be updated what's happening. And of course, as landlords, you have to have cash flow. You can't. And the biggest problem that we have with a lot of landlords is they rely on that rent, and if there's no rent coming in, then they struggle, and then of course they struggle to pay the mortgage. But let's remember, Carl, and you are old enough, unfortunately, dare I say it, the days of the late 80s when the interest rate was 15%. They're not even 1% now.
The only difference is, Paul, I remember the late 1980s. You remember the late 1880s. Just quickly.
Well, I don't want to say anything. No comment.
This tweet that came in from SK9. Great question here, guys. Hi, I'm nearing 40 as a first-time buyer with my girlfriend. I have 10% deposit. Do I bite the bullet and go for it, or sit tight and wait till post-COVID for better deals? Any advice, please? What a great question.
I know what to say, but I'll let Vish start
Go on,
first.
Vish. Go on, Vish.
I would go for it, because in my head, transactions taking 5-6 months, right?
Yeah.
So if something really bad happens, can you not just pull out?
Well, I think the point of the call was, am I going to get better value for money this side of the 31st of March or the other side? I think that's probably the nuts of the call.
I would wait.
You would wait? Yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Even though we're talking about extending the stamp duty deadline.
Well, I think, again, we've all agreed this. You get to quarter 1, quarter 2 next year, I think that you'll get a lot of landlords that will exit the marketplace. There will be a bit more turbulence, and I think if that happens, don't forget there's a lot of stuff that's been overpriced at the moment, and if he's 40 years old and he's a first-time buyer, we'll wait till 41. It's no big deal.
Okay, all right. Well, look, it's been great talking to you guys. Now, here at Talking Property, we love hearing from you, the listeners, on subjects we discuss and debate. Thank you for being with us tonight. We always love hearing from you. So if there's subjects you'd like us to discuss in future programmes, and text us with your thoughts on 0737 66 11033. Tweet us at LGR Talk Property, or email studio@lgr.co.uk. Remember, it's your show. It's happened again. We've run out of time, gentlemen. So let me firstly thank you for your kind and generous knowledge and time this evening on behalf of LGR and our listeners. Paul Champolina, Mario Prezaris, and the finance guy himself, Vijal. Absolutely fantastic having you with us, Vijal Gurajani from Thomas Oliver. Thanks so much as always. We will return Wednesday the 4th of November at 7 p.m, COVID lockdown permitting, with another topical programme from the world of property, discussing the questions of the day. Enjoy the last couple of weeks of light, ladies and gentlemen and listeners, as the nights draw in preparation for those cold winter nights. Stay safe, take care, observe the social distancing, and listening to, at the same time, listening to your favourite radio station, LGR, each and every day. Stay strong and stay positive in these challenging times. Thank you for being with me, Carl Knipe, and the excellent guest this evening. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Remember, tomorrow's another day, and be good. Till the next time we're together.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
LGR's Talking Property was brought to you in association with Duplex Care Limited, giving you peace of mind with your property's plumbing, gas, heating and electrical systems. Let Duplex Care care for you. The views and opinions expressed on LGR's Talking Property are those of the host, guests and contributors, and are not necessarily those of London Greek Radio. While all facts, figures and statistics are carefully researched, listeners should check before taking any action based on information and advice offered in this programme. LGR's Talking Property is presented by Carl Knipe and produced by London Greek Radio.